I know this. I know the subject matter.
Yes.
I know it like talking to you right now.
Yes.
I can say it all the time.
Yeah.
People, you can do videos of people that are TV guys and stuff like that, but they're only hunting micromanaged property. If
Yeah.
you get into any depth, they don't know anything.
Right.
They don't know anything. They walk down a nice pristine 2-track with a climber on their back and get in a tree in a mature timber area with no understudy and kill big bucks.
Yeah.
You don't do that in pressured property in public land.
No.
It doesn't happen.
No.
You don't hunt field edges and kill big bucks in pressured areas in public
Right.
land.
Right.
So
In those videos, I guess, in a little bit of fairness to those folks, they've carved out a niche for themselves. They're making some money. It's a business for them, but
it's a business. Yes.
yeah, it's just it's business, and it's entertainment more than anything. It's not necessarily instructional, or if at all
A
instructional.
lot of them try to push it as instructional when it has absolutely no reference to the blue collar hunters whatsoever. Most of the times, if you try and replicate what a lot of the TV guys do, and
Yeah.
you're hunting in a pressured area,
Yes.
it'll probably spook more deer than bring more deer in.
Yeah. Wow.
Aggressive rattling and the amount of scents they use, and hunting field edges and hunting open areas, hunting in mature timber with a hang on 18 feet off the ground. It just doesn't get it. If you want to kill 1.5-year-old and 2.5-year-old bucks, you might kill some, but if you want to kill real mature bucks, that doesn't get it.
Would it be a lot for me to ask you to walk us through? Our timeline this evening, and what it would take to go from A through Z. But we can fast forward at the level that you feel comfortable at. But I guess picture. I would almost want to be a mouse in your pocket, and peeking out and looking at what you do to prep. And I know there's so much more. The target practicing, et cetera, but in the equipment preparation, making sure you have all the tools necessary. But I'm really kind of asking, you got out of your vehicle.
Okay. So you're not talking about location preparation. You're talking about
Right.
actually physically going hunting.
Right. And I don't know why. It's just, that's what I'm asking right this minute. But
Yes. Okay. If I get out of my vehicle, well, the dressing process. I
Yes.
drive to a hunting location in my street clothes, just like I'd be dressed right now.
yes.
Then I hunt out of a minivan. I'm not one of those guys I'm not a truck guy.
Right.
I want to slide between my seats where there's nothing in the back, no seats. I take them out the day I buy my van. Don't put them back in until I sell my van. So I've got a little mini hotel room in the back.
This is already
I don't
neat.
need a 4-wheel drive. All that's going to do is get me stuck someplace where I need a wrecker to get me out.
Yes.
So a minivan's fine, and I slide between the seats. I change into my scent lock clothes. My backpack's in its own airtight tote. My scent lock's all in its own airtight tote. All my layering garments are washed in scent-free detergent. They're in their own airtight tote. So I get everything dressed, and then I put on my backpack, grab my bow, walk out to my tree, and climb up in my tree. My entry route, depends on where I'm hunting. Entry route. Typically, any one of my locations, I'm going to have a different entry than an exit. They're going to be different.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. That's neat.
Typically, let's say I'm hunting in a tree. Let's say there's a crop field, and 50 yards from off the crop field. Let's say from the crop field it goes downhill and into, let's say, a swamp or something, a marsh. And let's say there's a white oak tree on the edge of that marsh, and that's the tree I'm hunting in, and it's dropping acorns this particular year, so that's why I'm hunting it. I'm hunting next to it. What I would do on my evening entry, if it were an evening entry, I would walk out into the crop field. I would never walk down the edge of the crop field where there's timber, because I might spook deer in the timber with my walking down the edge.
Okay.
So I'd walk out into the crop field, and then when I get even with the tree that I want to go, then I'll walk across the field to the edge where that tree is at, and then I'll just walk down over to the tree. So I'm not walking down the edge. So now I'm not spooking anything with my entry because there's nothing out in the field because it's early afternoon.
Yes.
And then, or even if it's corn, I'll walk through the corn and then cut through the corn to that tree. And then after the hunt, I won't, if it's an open crop field, I won't come back up and exit out the edge of the crop field because there's going to be deer in it and I'm going to spook them with my exit.
Yes.
So I wait typically about a half hour after dark, and then I go through the swamp to exit. So I wait for the deer to leave the swamp to come into the crop field, and then I exit back through the swamp, so I'm not spooking anything with my exit.
Wow.
Because spooking deer, a lot of people, after a hunt, they feel, well, I can wear this big bright headlight and shine the light coming down the tree and exit because this hunt's over, so nothing matters.
Yeah.
Everything matters. When you're hunting pressure deer, every detail, every time you spook a deer
So
matters.
your descent is as important as your
Oh, absolutely.
approach or ascent to
Yeah.
the stand.
And it'd be exactly the opposite on a morning hunt. On a morning hunt, because the deer are going to be out in the crops, I'm going to come in through the swamp to my tree on the edge and then hunt, because the deer are going to be coming out of the crops early in the morning or
Yes.
just prior to daylight and pass by me. And then after that hunt's over late in the morning, I'll exit out through the crop field because the deer aren't out there anymore.
Wow.
So entries and exits have a lot to do with it. And when I'm hunting public land, I try to pretend when I'm hunting heavily pressured property like public land in Zone 3 in Michigan, which,
Yes.
there could easily be 40, 50 bow hunters and trees in every 640 acres on opening day
Yes.
of bow season. I've hunted many places like that. When I'm scouting stuff like that, I pretend everybody's trying to kill me. So where are the only places I will hunt,
It's a mindset.
I will go look at that I might feel comfortable moving during daylight hours. Because if I can walk like the TV guys do, if I can walk in an upright walking position to a location, I don't care if there's 50 scrapes and 2,000 rubs around it. It's irrelevant. Because if there's a mature buck visiting that, they're visiting it during the security of darkness.
Okay.
Because there's so many hunters, somebody else is going to find it as well.
Yes.
And they're going to totally destroy it. So when I'm hunting public lands, typically what I do is I have to access my location with waders, hip boots, canoe, boat, or crawling on my hands and knees.
Wow.
I've got to go places other hunters are just not willing to go. I mean, that's where they push the big bucks too.
Yeah.
So those are the places where I'm going to have a daytime opportunity.
Let's expand on that a little bit. You mentioned the canoe and the other tools. How is it that, if you're hunting public land, I have some ideas of how probably you pull it off, but do you worry about your equipment? The canoe, obviously, does that have to be, I would assume that it's placed or in place long before that day comes when you jump in it. Or am I wrong
my
on
canoe, my canoe weighs 42 pounds. It's
Really?
very light.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
And typically, typically, if I'm in a canoe, I'm going up a river.
Okay,
I'm
yes,
going up a river
okay.
or across a lake.
Yes.
Most rivers, most public lands, when I need to cross water, I can typically do it in
Yeah.
chest waders.
Yeah.
Typically, I can find an area in chest waders. So that's what I do most of the time.
Okay.
My two biggest Michigan bucks were both killed in cattail marshes in islands, within cattail marshes, where I had to wear chest waders almost 3/8 of a mile through waist-high water in cattails to access the island. But I would guarantee nobody's ever been on those islands before. There wasn't any sign of a human on those islands.
It's certainly not with those efforts that need to be made.
Yeah.
You could take 100 really, really good hunters, and 99 out of them aren't going to go through that.
Yeah, I don't hunt there anymore. My brother still hunts in that area. Now, I would assume nowadays probably somebody's hunted back in that area. In fact, a guy killed a big buck down in the same zone. I don't know where he was hunting. But now with aerial photos and stuff, you can see those little islands.
Yeah.
I can remember when I found that one island where I killed my state record buck. I was just walking along the edge of these cattails, and I could just see the tips of some trees out in this middle of this cattail marsh. And I just thought, I've got to go check that out.
Yeah.
Because if that's an island, obviously it's a dry spot because there's mature trees there.
Yeah.
And I thought, if that's an island, and that's not the end of the cattails, it's just an island.
Yeah, it's
there's
holding a deer.
there's going to be a big buck bedding around the perimeter of that or on it,
Yeah.
and it's exactly what happened.
Let me ask you, it ties in, I think, with what we're discussing here. Go through a little bit of a mindset of that mature buck. And when I say that, public land buck in Michigan, or wherever, what are your guidelines, or what should you expect as far as age, If we look at a Pope and Young score on it, I mean, what are we usually looking at? And then what's going on in that? What do you think is going on in that buck's mind, even in that short little time, that just before you're hunting him? I mean, that evening you're sitting there, and how long do you sit? Those type of things.
Well, during rut phases, if I'm in a bedding area,
Yes.
like the Cattail Marsh is definitely back in a bedding area, it's an all-day sit.
Okay.
So I'm going to be on that island 2 hours before daylight. So I've got to be there way before he's going to come in. But everything mature buck-wise, especially on public land and heavily pressured, and I've hunted a lot of private parcels that were just as pressured as a lot of public
Yes.
lands I've hunted, because you get downstate,
Yeah.
you get in states with high populations, like in Zone 3, there may be 20 or 30 property owners that owns 5s and 10s and 20s in a section. And
Yes.
if all of them have 1 or 2 people hunting, that's a lot of hunters. So when you get into places like that, you just got to get back where nobody's got to be. And everything mature buck-wise has to revolve around security cover. I never in Michigan hunt any location, even on knock on doors for private property permission. I never hunt any place that doesn't have perimeter security cover around the kill zone and transition security cover to a known bedding area. So a buck has to be able to leave a bedding area, come through security cover of some form or skirt security cover where he's got a quick exit route, and then at my destination location, let's say it's at an apple tree at a primary scrape area, or at a white oak tree, or it's in a funnel, a tight pinch point of
Yes.
transition security cover, it's got to have security cover around it. Mature bucks that are 3.5 years old or older in Michigan, which it usually has to be at least 3.5 years old to be a P&Y, typically 4.5. Everything revolves around security cover. If there's not security cover there, the odds of killing a mature buck at it with any consistency is pretty close to 0.
Wow.
So that immediately eliminates hunting in any mature timber with no understudy. If there's no security cover understudy, like a lot of timber, the canopy doesn't let any sun come through, so there's no brush on the ground
Yes.
under the trees. So I would never even consider hunting in there.